Hi, I'm Eric Ostro, host of Live at the Lortel. For Season 3, we are focusing on the intersection of arts and advocacy. So many off-Broadway artists give back to their communities. This season, we are giving them the opportunity to speak about how and why they chose the causes they devote themselves to, and how those causes help make them the people and artists they are today. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Live at the Lortel. I've missed everybody a lot, and I've missed the show. Well, we've only been gone a week, but I've missed everyone a lot. Let's bring in our co-host, my dear friend, Joy D. Michelle. Hi, Joy.
Hello, my love. How are you?
I'm so excited to have our guest. She's been on my list for 2 years, and we've been waiting for the pandemic and everything to kind of calm down so she can introduce her show and we can talk about it. Sas Goldberg is a New York-based actress, writer, producer, mother, wife, and business owner who is currently in rehearsals for Which Way to the Stage at MCC Theater. Sas made her Broadway debut in Significant Other by Josh Harmon and can be seen alongside Will Ferrell and Paul Rudd in the Apple series The Shrink Next Door and Amy Schumer's Hulu series Life and Beth. As a writer, Sas is currently a co-producer writing in the room for the upcoming 5th season of The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. She is a strong supporter of female-founded businesses and fostering female voices entering the typically male-dominated world of neon design. Ladies and gentlemen, my Instagram friend, Sas Goldberg.
What an intro. Hi.
Yeah, well
Welcome.
Hi.
Look
Thanks
at
for
this. Here we
being
are.
here.
It's happening.
It's happening.
We're live at the Lortel.
Live at the Lortel. I'm so happy you're here. I feel like it's taken forever.
I know. It's because it has taken forever.
It has, yeah.
Mhm.
I stalked you after Moscow. Remember? I was waiting for you by the stage door.
You remember that was very generous of you.
Yes, and I was like, you weren't scared though.
I wasn't scared. No, I was
yeah,
so
Jewish boy, Jewish girl. We don't get scared of each other.
Me cute.
I just, you were so, everything I see you and you're always so wonderful. And especially that show where Natasha takes that incredible arc and you just were.
Thank you.
Well, Hallie's writing and everything about that.
Genius.
I mean, another genius. But, while we're talking about it, let's talk about, MCC is now open and theaters are starting to open with masks.
Yeah.
And you are now in the second week of rehearsal for Which Way to the Stage at MCC. Let's talk a little bit about Which Way to the Stage and how it came to you and everything about the show.
Yeah, I've been involved in the show for quite some time now. The playwright Anna is a friend of mine, and I think maybe one of the first readings of it in 2017, 2018, and then we did it in California, a workshop of it in 2019, and we really thought it was going to happen in 2020. We were all set to go. I think you know how the end of the sentence goes. Cut to no show, no theater. Pandemic, world shut down, and some really scary stuff playing out. And we were really lucky enough to be reprogrammed once the theater was opening. And so this has been a long time in the making. We've kind of all been chomping at the bit to start again. So I sort of cannot believe that this is my job right now. It's one of those moments that I cannot believe that this is what I'm being paid to do. It sounds idiotic. If you could tell, 14-year-old Sas, 10-year-old Sas, this is what she'd be doing, she wouldn't believe you. Honestly,
incredible.
29-year-old Sas.
That's incredible.
So I feel really, I mean this in the full sense of the word. I feel so grateful for this experience. I don't want to miss any moment of it, if that makes sense. I want to there's a moment in this is such a random reference, The Office, the series, the American series. There's a moment when Jim and Pam are getting married and he kind of takes little visual snapshots so he can remember each thing. And they're pretend snapshots. And I feel like every moment in rehearsal, I'm just I'm doing snapshots. If you're listening, I'm taking faux snapshots.
To remember everything.
Remember everything.
Every little
I remember this moment. I remember when I used the cup and I used the wrong cup.
So the premise of the play is that you are waiting outside the Richard Rodgers Theater
Mhm.
for a performance of If Then, and you are fans
Yeah, it's
of
two
the
best
show.
friends. It's two best friends, stage dooring a theater to get a very specific autograph, and their friendship is changed through the course of the play. But it really ultimately is about friendship, and it's a love story to friendship, and it's very a word beshert means meant to be that I am doing it with my best friend from high school, Max Jenkins. He was my prom date. So it's like and a
Oh, how
crazy
sweet.
story. Isn't that
Wow,
wild?
wow.
That's incredible.
I
So,
know.
okay, I'm curious to know how that came about. Were you asked to do it, or like
Question.
the whole story?
We were paired to I mean, so I know Anna, the playwright, from like One Walk of Life. I think we met when we were like maybe 21, like sort of just beginning our careers in New York. And Max and Anna went to theater camp together. So they've known each other since they were like 13. And then
Stage door.
I went to Stage Door. They went
Oh,
to
okay.
Woods.
Okay.
So there's some serious rivalry happening there. And then Max and I went to LaGuardia, the High School of Performing Arts in
Yeah.
New York. And I literally remember the moment that I saw him, one shoulder sort of incredible backpack. And I was like, who's that guy? And
Yes.
history. And he was my prom date. I mean, that's not like me kind of embellishing a story or putting bells and whistles on. That's an accurate detail.
I love it.
So and I don't know if you've ever seen a show or even sometimes like fabricated friendship or manufactured friendship, you sort of can feel like allergic to that a little bit where, like if it feels I feel very lucky that I've known this person since I was 13 years old.
So the
Oh.
chemistry is there. I mean,
I hope so.
you
If not, we're
you know,
going to have some serious issues.
yeah, but I mean, you finish each other's sentences. I mean, obviously, there's something there.
And the first scene of the play is kind of like you are catapulted into the world. So it's very helpful that we both speak we speak sort of a language with one another. And I happen to speak very fast. And Max does as well. So we have to be cognizant to like not speed it up to the point where we're speaking gibberish.
I'm fascinated by this backstage and backdoor um, fans that wait for their favorite performer. And, sometimes I was thinking about Dear Evan Hansen,
Yeah.
where it became, a horrible thing for poor Ben Platt, who would have to live through, what he lived through every night and then kind of escape through another way. And then people tweeting these horrible things, about him. What's your point of view on these people that, the show is the thing, right? The show is the thing. But
Yeah.
many people now are saying, the backstage experience is the thing.
It's sort of both. There's an element to theater because people are live and in front of you and in person. There is an element that like they're giving you so much that you want to give them as well. It's a little different than film and TV where somebody's watching, on a screen and they feel far, but in theater they feel close. So I think, in at least in 2015, stage dooring something, these people, Jeff and Judy specifically, are looking to have a quick conversation or a particular moment with a woman that means a great deal to them. And so
Connection.
I come to it from there. It's less like, hey, let me get the signature so I can sell this playbill or anything like that. This is connection. I need to tell you how much you mean to me. And I do understand that feeling. It's almost that feeling of, it's probably happened to me twice when you see like a celebrity or somebody that means a great deal to you specifically, and you have to have that moment of, I'm so sorry to do this to you, but I have been
But
a fan of you since yada, yada, yada. I got to have that moment like, when was it now? I guess 2016.
who
I
was
had
it?
like truly the person that changed my life that made me realize I wanted to do this was Sherry O'Terry. Her
Yeah.
very
Yeah, of
specifically
course, from Saturday Night Live. Yeah.
5. I was in Orlando. I must have been in like Disney World or something with my dad, and he let me stay up late, and I got to watch SNL. And I really remember everything kind of calming down in my body and thinking like, I want half the magic of what this person has. I never seen anything like it. It was electric. It was funny. She was brave. She was all the things I wanted to be. And it was the thing that made me start doing this. And I started taking an improv class. And although improv is certainly, I'm not claiming to be an improver in any sense, but that was like the first taste of kind of being comfortable in my own skin, taking risks, all those sort of things. And that really started with Sherry O'Terry. And I got to meet her and do something with her, like a little sketch I wrote for Funny or Die in 2016. And she agreed to play one of the roles. And so it
Wow.
was very surreal. She walked into like, the hair and makeup area, and I was trying to keep it cool, like, just whatever, we're peers, we're actors, what's happening? And then I had to just tell her, and she was very gracious and very lovely.
I love you talking about being brave and taking risks. Your career has been incredible. So
Oh,
you are a business owner, you're an actor, you're a writer, you're a wife, you're a mom. That's a lot to have on your plate, and you do it all well. So I'd love to talk about how it is that you decided to say yes, because there's a lot of people out there who are like, "Oh, I'm this or I'm that, and I can't do something else."
yeah.
But you said yes to all of it. So what's your philosophy behind saying yes to what feels good? Because obviously you did that. And how'd you break through the fear?
What a great question. Funny enough, I think depending on who you ask, I don't know if they think I do everything very well. And I don't know if I think I do everything well. There are certain moments when I don't feel like I definitely deal with imposter syndrome every single day. It's sort of this thing of like, I'm a writer. Like what? I own a neon company. Like I feel like I'm sometimes doing a Mad Libs game, or like I'm just inserting words and they don't really make sense. So I definitely deal with imposter syndrome. I hope that goes away one day. It hasn't gone away for me yet. I have to be totally honest with that. I'm a mom. Like, how did that happen to people I'm responsible for? But each thing kind of organically went into one another. I went to LaGuardia for acting, and then went to the University of Michigan for theater, and I graduated. And I will be honest with you, I graduated with this idea of like, hey world, get ready, here I am. And then I honestly did not get cast for many, many years, or I had small jobs and I kind of would build it up to think like, this is it, this is the moment, where the plane is taking off. I had this version of like what was going to happen to me that just wasn't reality. And
Right.
so writing became, originally I was starting to write because I wanted to maybe have roles for myself, and that's kind of how I got into it. And then it became a different thing where I realized I loved writing like as much as acting, and so and not writing for myself and writing for other voices, and so everything kind of fell into one another. But there have been I there for a very long period of time, I was working 3 jobs at the same time. I was teaching children's theater. I was waiting tables. I was an assistant to a headshot photographer because I really wanted him to take my headshots. So it was like, let's make a deal. That was kind of the vibe of what was happening. There wasn't this idea of like where I kind of fell out and, Amazon was calling me for, to staff on their shows. That wasn't how this played out. And it's still not how it played out. I have this moment there's always those gears changing between jobs, especially because I wear different hats. Like those gears always changed. I'm like, oh, I'm putting on a different hat. Oh God, I have to take off that. Oh, I put 2 hats on at the same time. I got to take off the other hat. So that's always happening. I do
Mhm.
so much. I have so much anxiety. I have so much imposter syndrome. And that's the God's honest truth.
What I want to talk a little bit about significant other.
Oh, me too.
So that is a magnificent play which I saw off Broadway, Josh Harmon's play,
Mm.
starring your other best friend Gideon Glick.
Married him.
Yes, correct. You married him.
Mhm.
Well, you were him and
Officiate.
his husband, right? Correct, exactly.
Yes. Oh, I didn't marry
Um,
him. Yeah, that's
right. Okay.
wow.
I loved the play. Then it came to Broadway.
I did.
And you had your Broadway premiere. But I'm more interested in, I love the part of Kiki.
Me too.
I think Kiki is probably a lives in you somewhere.
Oh, for sure.
I grew up in Roslyn, Long Island, so
Oh,
I
you
know
did?
Kiki. Yeah, I know Kiki very well. This Kiki has a heart of gold. Many of the Kikis I grew up with do not.
Mhm.
But sorry, Rosalind. But the
I know
I would
lovely
love to
people from
talk
Roslyn.
about what significant other meant to you and the relationship that you created with Gideon and the rest of the cast.
Yeah, I'm really close with that cast. I'm really close with that creative team. That was a really special experience. Another sort of one of those things that kind of talking about the catapulting. I had met Josh at auditions for a different play of his that didn't go my way, and went back to all the other jobs I was having and, put that audition away and say goodbye to it. And then Josh reached out to me at the time on Facebook and was like, I have another play. It is very long right now. I don't know what it's going to be or what shape it's going to be in, but would you ever, I'm getting a few actors together, would you ever read one of the roles? And I was like, of course. And it was what ultimately ended up being Significant Other. So that first reading was maybe, I don't know, 2011. And then we did workshop after workshop, kind of similar to Which Way to the Stage, but in a different sort of iteration. And then the cast really came together. And that experience was, I can't believe that show came to Broadway. I don't like know in what world that was. Jeffrey Richards, our producer, bravely brought it. We were not famous, huge kind of headline names at the top. It was a Broadway debut for a lot of us. So it was one of those experiences where we were all like holding hands at the same time, kind of right off the cliff. And that another experience when we were like teching that show, I was sitting at the booth theater thinking like, if you could tell me that this was happening. I always wish I could talk to that,
Yeah,
and it's so funny
sure.
that the show I'm in right now, TV show, Life and Beth, Amy Schumer show, she doesn't speak to her younger self, but her younger self is represented in the
Yeah, I've been watching it. Yeah.
show. And so there are so many moments where I wish I could speak to that person. Be like, Sass, you're not going to believe it. This is going to happen.
Now, I'm curious, are you also a staff writer on that show?
No, I'm just an actor on the show.
Okay. And are you a staff writer on another show?
I wrote on the Shrink Next Door, and then I got to be in it as well.
Okay. So that, again, I think you are incredible. So
Thank
can you
you.
talk about that process? Because a lot of people sit in imposter syndrome, right? So you're like, oh, I think I want to write, but I don't know if I really have a voice, but I don't know if I'm a great writer. Well, you took that, I think I want to write, started writing for yourself, your own things, then started writing for other people. And now it's just a matter of fact that you've written for a show,
Yeah.
right? So can we talk about those little moments in between? Because those are things to celebrate and be excited about.
That is really kind. I am really excited about it. Funny enough, I was writing at the time. I was writing television show, and I was developing with TV. We could do a whole other like 4-hour podcast of what that means. But developing TV, it can mean a few different things. Sometimes you write a show on your own, and then a producer or a studio or a
Or you
network.
and Jake, right?
Jake Wilson and I, like my best friend, and
Which those are funny, by the way. They're hilarious.
Hysterical.
thank you. Yeah, and I was talking to him an hour ago, and he really makes me like belly laugh when I'm in one of those. Sometimes when I have to be serious, I can't talk to him because like I'll have full church giggles. But there's all different sort of versions of it. And then there was a period of time where I wanted to break into possibly staffing into a room. For some reason, staffing on a show felt like it was saying goodbye to actress Sass. Like I felt like I was like, like turning off the lights and, or like saying like good night and good luck. And it hasn't turned out to be that way at all. But it did feel that way because it's a time commitment and you're writing. And I didn't know what it was going to be like. I didn't know if I was going to feel honestly envy the entire time of like, oh, I wish I was saying that, or like, oh, on set. And it turned out not to be that experience at all. I have loved the experience. The Shrink Next Door was the first room I was in. And that was once again, I always liken it to the same reason I love theater. Being in a writer's room to me feels very much my experiences so far. They're not vast, but I've had a few. My experiences so far feel like being in a cast, like you're all in it together. You're all building something together. It feels that sort of secret moment before particularly the moment before it airs or before it premieres. And it's just you guys who know these people and who've created these people from a page. And I have loved writing in that sense. I can't wait to do another show.
Do you see yourself becoming a playwright?
Oh, that scares me. Wow, imposter syndrome. I don't like that's the one, like it's like playwright. I don't think I don't think I have those goods.
I think you do, but you are actually about to, or you're in the middle of writing Mrs. Maisel.
Yeah, actually, Mrs. Maisel like seamlessly took me right into
How did that come about?
People like it's a large industry, but then there's also like weird crossover. And funny enough, when I was getting into staffing, I had written all these shows, developed them at network. So what that means, typically I've taken notes that like a network or a studio has given me. So though the script is mine, there probably would be twists and turns that haven't been exactly what I necessarily would have in mind on the onset, but it's that amalgamation of taking notes, and then it becomes sort of a different creation. However, the first script I wrote on spec, meaning I just wrote it myself in my room, typing away, ended up being my sample. So it's like the script that's always sent when I'm staffing. And that script was sent to the people at Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, and I came on for the 5th and final season.
Now, did you do some sort of writing program to get you in? Like, that's the part I feel like
Okay,
people listening are going, what's the connect? How did
I'm
it
gonna be
happen?
honest, and this is where the imposter syndrome comes, but this is we're being honest here today. So this
Yes,
is
we
what it
are.
is.
Yeah.
Jake Wilson, who we were just speaking of, basically it was a time in my life I was auditioning. I was not getting roles. And I was feeling probably sorry for myself, if I'm being honest, and like, oh, like, and the thing is, even when you did get the roles, I wasn't feeling the full fulfillment because the job typically
Mm.
does end. Then I'd be like, oh my God, I'm right back in the pool. And this idea of how I thought it was going to be, that like one job was going to still like a stepping stone into another job, just wasn't how it was panning out. And I did some great gigs, but they didn't sort of have the stepping stone that I maybe thought they were going to have for some reason. And I don't know why I thought that. I did. And Jake called me and he was like, would you want to write a movie together? And I remember being like, I don't know how to write a movie. And he's like, we'll figure it out together. Cut to, I'm using, screenwriter lingo now. Cut to like me truly Googling what happens in a movie, how to write movie, or what happens in act 1 of a movie. I didn't know if you wrote it in Google Docs, if you wrote it in Word, if you wrote it in Final Draft. I mean, I didn't know the basics. And we taught ourselves kind of how to write a film, and then did the same sort of thing with television. So there wasn't like a screenwriting class I took or anything like that. I read a lot of scripts. I watched a lot of things. Even now to this day, every single time I'm starting to write a new pilot, there's like 2 pilots I rewatch because they introduce characters so well. Pilots are notoriously impossible because like you have to set up the stakes, you have to set up the world, you have to set up the people, you have to make jokes if it's a comedy. So it's a lot to do without it feeling like exposition. And I started learning. That's why I feel imposter syndrome, because I was like teaching myself as I was doing it, which is wild. Like my one qualification was I wrote funny emails.
Could you share what so advice to young people, because there are young people that listen to the podcast or watch the podcast,
Yeah.
and you've gone from being an actor to a writer, back to an actor to a producer. I mean, you wear so many hats. What's your advice? I mean, there are 2 things that you go back to, and you don't have to tell us what they are. I would love to know, but
happy to share. I mean, I write comedy typically, so
Yes.
I always rewatch the pilot of The American Office. The British Office is incredible as well. I'm just like, the American Office explains so well, because it's not like a big cosmic event happens in the pilot either. But I think it's pretty similar to the UK Office as well. And then I watched the pilot for The Comeback, Lisa Kudrow show, and they sort of both kind of like center. Veep is a great one to watch as well because there's multiple characters. Insecure is amazing. There's like certain pilots that just like hit on every single cylinder, and those really do it for me. And it just like, especially when I'm feeling like, oh, the hardest part of writing, anyone who wants to write out there, the hardest part of writing is the first word. I always, someone once told me, now I want to give credit, and now I don't remember who it is. Either I read it Look how smart. I can't even think. Even either I read it or someone told me you have to think of your first draft like a little elf comes in and writes it for you, and then you come to it later and be like, "What is this? Let me fix it." That's how I think of it every single time. I have to like
Interesting.
vomit
I,
something out.
I was watching one of the pieces that you did with Jake,
Mhm.
and it made me think. I said, I wonder if she wrote this line and then thought, I'm going to build a scene around it.
Mm.
And it was the line about wearing socks with your heels. Do you remember this? Like a sock, a heel, a boot, and a something. It was so funny, but so simple. And because I've heard writers talk about, I'll just remember one line and I'll get to it later. Do you ever do that? Do you
Oh,
go, I'm gonna hold this and then I'll figure out what to do with it?
Joy, if you could see what my notes app looks like on my phone, because sometimes and it will jog a memory even on like every day I go to write and I'm like, ooh, I have nothing to write about. And I'll look at this notes app and sometimes they make absolutely no sense. And then often they usually just like jog my memory of and I write it down really quickly. I'll do it in the middle of the night if I wake up from a dream. It's sort of wild what it looks like, but it's always something for me to pull on or remember or like a memory, just because you never what I find funny, and this is why I watch The Office and The Comeback so often, is sort of observational everyday humor, not absurdist. It's not typically like what I vibe with. And so the pulling from my life is truly all I got. Or somebody says something really funny to me, I'll be like, oh, that's good.
For me, The Comeback is, and I love The Office, but for me, The Comeback is the most genius show ever written
Ahead of its
because
time.
you're exactly right. I mean, the first episode, you get it. You get absolutely everything, and then you're ready to, when I watch it, I just can't watch the first season. I mean, I love season 1, but I actually love season 2
Me
better.
too. Oh my God.
2 is just the most incredible thing I've ever seen, and I watch it not only because of the writing is so good, but the acting is so good.
Oh my God. And I don't want to give it away, but like the last shot of the series, you have to watch it if you haven't watched it. But the last shot of the series is like absolutely breathtaking the way it shifts. I mean, it's just it shows that break your heart and make you laugh.
Yep,
That's where it's all about.
I totally, completely agree.
And
Well, let's.
Succession is the same sort of way for me. Succession is like an hour-long comedy to me. That's how I watch it.
It is.
It is.
It is the best. But can we talk about your business?
Yes, let's
Yes.
get to that.
Think about my business.
And why?
Why? Wow, this is a great question. So for those that are listening, yes, I own a neon design fabrication studio, co-owned with my incredible co-founder, Lena Imamura, who I also know from childhood, high school. How it came to be, because I'm sure you're about to ask that. I'll give it.
Yes, it's coming up. Yeah.
Right? Yeah, I know, because it's really random. You think me writing is random? Neon's even more random. But my nephew was born in 2013, and I really wanted a gift that I thought would be cool that he could keep from like childhood to like I had this dream of like childhood to kids room to teenager to college. I created a play for whatever I was going to give to him, and I thought a neon sign would be really cool. And I thought my sister-in-law and my brother-in-law would love it. And I Googled neon New York City thinking it would yield a ton of results. Another cut to, it did not. There was like 3 websites that came up. They sort of felt really dated to me, or like they were designed in 1982 and it hadn't been updated. There was maybe sometimes a phone number at the bottom of the page. If I called the number, I always spoke to like somebody who was sort of been in the business for a long time and spoke to me as if I knew what I was talking about. And I already felt a little stupid. So, the first question was like, do you got a junction box? Your GTO is gonna, and I was like, whoa, back up. Like, does this plug in? Is it glass? What is it? Is it safe? I didn't know what it was. It almost felt like you needed to like, I went to places that did awnings and bar signage and things that I didn't think they were going to get specifically be able to cater to this. And I had a friend from high school who had beautiful neon in her home. And I reached out to her. I was like, would you ever want to make this for me? What's a quote? I have no idea what this costs. And she walked me through it in such an incredible way. She did these mock-ups where she put it over crib and then over a changing table, and I could change the W and, swap out the color. And at the time I was teaching theater to children. And I was like, I think people would want this. Like this is a hole in the marketplace. And we set out and created Name Glow. I think we thought best case scenario, this was like an Etsy shop somewhere. I don't think we ever thought this was going to be a full fabrication studio on the Lower East Side. You can come visit, you can come see, you can come feel. Don't touch things too much because they're very delicate. But it's a full space, and it's female led, which is really super important to both of us, and the big part of the experience of Name Glow as well.
And if you go to Name Glow, and if you go to the website, which we put it up,
Thank you.
you actually you break it down for people. So it's, what it's made out of, how you do it, what is entailed, how it's, how the neon is
It's the
made.
same thing if you're a client as well. If you come as a client and
Yeah.
Eric's making a piece for his home and we're bending it that day, which is they're
Yeah.
literally neon is truly tubes of glass that are bent over heat to make it shape. We would say like, Eric, hey, we're bending your piece today if you want to pop by the studio. So
yeah.
like it's again like lifting the veil on art form that has sometimes seemed very mysterious and kind of, because there's a lot of questions. It's not inexpensive. It's totally investment. It's totally art. So there's questions like, why is it so much? Those kind of questions. And I think if you could see the artistry behind it, you'd be like, oh, I see what's happening. There's truly somebody bending this by hand. It is a very specialized skill.
Yeah. And you show that on your website. I mean, you
I'm
show,
so happy
yeah.
that you get that.
Yeah, which is incredible. It's an incredible video to show exactly how a neon sign is made and how much work and artistry goes into designing even like a 5-letter word. It's
We
incredible.
tried to make it, bite-sized and digestible, but at the end of the day, it's still a lot of, even when we were picking like 10 fonts to specialize on the website, like it's not like we just like kind of found them and like threw them up there. You have to figure out how each font would work in each material, and they all change. So there's a lot of information, we find we have a lot of information to get out to people, and you don't want to give when someone writes you a very long email and your eyes already cross, we
Right.
don't want that to happen. So we'll try to give it in sound bites. Like, are you with me? Are you with me? Are you with me? But I have a lot to tell you.
So let's talk a little bit about what you switched to during the pandemic.
Yeah, of course.
Which I thought was brilliant. And as soon as I saw it, I made donations and wanted to do it. Tell us a little bit about what you did. Obviously, you had to close the store. The pandemic came, and nobody's buying neon for.
And not only is nobody buying neon, we couldn't even make neon. We weren't.
Right.
We weren't considered a essential business that had to be open.
Exactly.
And so we were shut down. And so it really became like all hands on deck, particularly with my co-founder, of like, how can we have people continue to keep their jobs? How can we have people continue to keep health insurance? How do we keep this happening when nobody is buying things? And I think several small businesses would understand this feeling. It was all we thought about, and it was really important to us to try to. And on top of that, we have a lot of materials and we have a lot of machinery at the space used for neon typically, or for plexi if we're cutting it, that we realized could be used to make face shields. And my partner, Lena, I was very, very pregnant at the time with my second daughter. And it was like, the Wild West. We were in New York City. We never left. And my partner, Lena, figured out with a few different companies how to start to distribute and manufacture these face shields. And then once we realized we could do a few, we were like, if people help support it a little bit, because we had needed we wanted to also continue to pay people at Name Glow, but we were like, if people could support the face shield effort a little bit, we could get it out to more. And then we were able to get them out to tons and tons of hospitals, particularly in a time when PPP was not available.
What
do you know how many? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Did you feel very purposed doing that? Like during this time that we were all going through this, tumultuous time, did you feel like, oh my goodness, I'm able to provide a service that is helpful?
Well, I felt like we felt like such New Yorkers in that moment. We were both, I can't explain. There was like a moment of like, you roll up your sleeves, like what's needed, how to be helpful. And I think we were all, I know many of us were at home being like, what can we do? What can we do? And I was lucky enough to be able to donate to a bunch of places that I needed to, but to also be able to do something with our space. And create something that could help in that moment felt incredible. And like, Lena, every time she would hand deliver half of these things, her partner Yuri would go with her. And and there was a whole kind of team of people that started to get involved, donate their time. I'll come. True bravery. And I really give a lot of that credit to Lena. She oversaw that entire experience. I was just like 8 months pregnant.
Well, I mean, you were 8 months pregnant. There wasn't a lot of people that you could be around, but
No,
how many? Do you know how many you made?
I
You did a
don't remember
lot.
yeah, we made a lot. And it was at the time where like there were no it was like
We needed it.
very early on the people. I think we were shocked with how many donations we got, because at that time there was nowhere people wanted to give. They literally didn't know where, because they didn't know how to get these goods to people. Nobody could make them. There was a total shortage. So once we realized, like, I think we can use this thing to do it, it was pretty incredible.
Yeah, you got that word out, and we all put our hands in our pockets.
You guys got that word out. We got that
Yeah.
word out one time, and then people, that was
Yeah.
true experience of me realizing that everyone was sort of feeling how we were all feeling. Like, how can I help? Do you need me to, there was that feeling happening. And that's where I go with the New Yorkers, because that's like the New Yorker. It like brings me back to like, the idea of like when it really is, when we're in it, it's like, all right, what do we need to do? How do we mobilize here?
Yeah. I think all your friends and even IG followers I just kept putting the word out, and it just was. And I remember texting you or whatever and being like, okay, I got more. And you're like, you know what? We don't need any more.
That's how at one point we were like, because it was only so many of us who could do it, and
Yeah.
you could only allow so many people in the space at the same time,
Right, of course.
because the bodies in the space 6 feet apart. So it was this wild thing where like it took off, and we're like, I think we have to close the link.
Yeah.
But it, very, very. I'm so lucky. I feel so grateful that we got to have that experience, be out there, and that we did it.
I want to talk about motherhood.
Oh, yes. That was a great cue. I hear my daughter coming in.
Oh, good. I can't wait to see Gold.
Hang
on. For me, you kind of watch the people you admire and on Instagram and Facebook or whatever. And you put up some very funny videos of you and Goldie and you and Alice, and they're hysterically funny. I mean, that child is,
Goldie is
a product of, the parents. I don't know your husband, but I mean, she is a funny young 4.5-year-old. I mean, she seems much older than 4.5.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about work and motherhood.
Oh God, I always really look forward to like talking about it, because I did feel before I got pregnant and before I had Goldie, I didn't feel like I knew a lot of people who I could speak with, particularly in theater, to be like, how do you do this? Physically, how do you do it? And the person that was really helpful at the time, I remember running into Celia Keenan Bolger, and she had I think her son was maybe 2 years old at the time. And she was so willing and so eager and so kind to share information with me. And it was like the only person I could even suss out anything from, because it's really hard to do. I am very, very lucky. I have an incredible support system. My family is in New York. My husband's from New Jersey. His family is here as well. So we have like very helpful grandparents. We have an incredible caregiver, Nicole, who this entire operation, the ship would completely sink without Nicole Roberts. Nicole Roberts is my sun, moon, and stars. And so we do have a lot of help, but it requires a lot of help if you want to continue to do this other part of it. You're constantly feeling guilty one place or the other. There's that never ends. But I do feel like at least my kids have obviously given so much, but there is also this element of it's much bigger than me, which has been so helpful. They remind me of that. They're quite humbling, and I feel I love being a mom. I love being their mom. 2 is wild, but we try to. It's also there is so much comedy that is born out of these two people. They are funny people. I think all kids are funny. You know, they're either funny or they're the most annoying people I've ever met in my entire life. But they keep us laughing.
So you said you had an expectation when you got out of school and started acting. Then you had an expectation when you started writing, and it didn't happen quite like you expected. Did you have an expectation when you became a mother?
I had an expectation that at one moment something would hit me, that I'd be like, I'm ready to do this. It's now my time to give life. Or yeah, I thought this would kind of happen to me, and I didn't have that. Even up until my entire pregnancy, I was like, ay, 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 what am I doing? What am I doing? What am I doing? And I really, selfishly, I really liked my life. I liked, I liked doing what I wanted to do when I wanted to do it. And I was like, this is all going to change. And I'll be honest, it all did change. For me, it all changed for the better, but
Right.
the priorities shifted completely. And I think I thought that was going to come to me very easily, and it didn't. It was a rocky first few months for me. And I did not expect to deal with that. I really have never dealt with depression in a big sort of way. And I totally had postpartum, and I was not prepared for what that experience, that sadness would be like, especially in a moment where everyone's like, how happy are you? In bliss? Are you in bliss? Is it bliss? And I wasn't feeling bliss. So this idea of performance bliss, while also, being home thinking like, that immediate bond that everyone told me I was going to do. And I just remember pumping constantly, the breast, everything. I was like, this is hell. I remember doing the 20, and I was also, speaking to that, I was proving to myself that I was still the old Sas.
Yes.
I remember at one point I was asked to do like the 24-hour plays at Roundabout, and it was like sort of a wild task. Like I don't know how I was going to be away from the baby 24 hours, and it was like she was very, very young. But I was like, I can do this. This is what I do. Of course I can do this. And I brought my fakakta pump to the theater, and I was pumping, and it was like, thankfully the person that had me for the 24-hour plays was Josh, and it was Gideon, but it was also like Leah Delaria, who I don't know. And I was like, I'm going to have to pump right now. I'm so sorry. Like, it was a wild experience. It was one of those things where I was like, you're not going to be able to do everything, and that's okay.
Mhm.
And say yes, which has been kind of gotten me to where I am at some point. Oh, see, sorry, this is my
It's
dad.
okay.
Family, they call.
Hi,
See,
Dad. Yeah,
hi, Dad.
Mr. Goldberg.
Mr.
So
Goldberg.
tell me, can you talk a little bit about the postpartum depression and how it played within your artistry, and what got you over? And did the same thing happen with Alice?
No, it did not happen with Alice. It only happened with Goldie. Funny enough, but it's hard for me to really say that because I don't know if I was prepared for it more with Alice. So I kind of knew that like all those things were going to happen. I was really unprepared with Goldie. I think I had gotten so much of like it's amazing and soak in these moments, and they'll go by in a flash. And I felt like time truly stood still. And the minute it was like watching a pot of water boil, and just it wouldn't boil. And when people are like, I remember getting a lot. People like to give you a lot of advice when you're pregnant. Everyone has thoughts for you, even if you don't ask them. And I remember there being a lot of like,
New
they'll start
Yorkers,
sleeping a little
right?
bit more at 3 months, 4 months, whatever it would be. And I was like I was counting down like literally like day 3, hour 4. Like I was like 3 months from now feels like absolute eternity. And I've always considered myself a funny person. That's like something I identify with, humor. It's the way I've found myself. I don't know if that's being Jewish or whatever it is. It's kind of the way we deal with a lot of pain.
Yes, it is.
And I couldn't find the funny for a while. And that panicked me.
So what did you do to get over that hump?
I honestly, I can't say it did. The clouds passed at a certain point. I remember like and it wasn't like overnight. It was slowly, I think, getting a little bit more sleep was really
Yeah.
helpful. And just feeling a little, I was very scared to be with the baby. It was kind of like, don't leave her, you're going to come back. And I think I resented that I was breastfeeding at the time. So I was, and I felt I had to prove to myself something I don't even know. I would love to talk to that version of Sass too and be like, throw in the towel. Like she's not into it. You're not into it. Like, no need to be a martyr here. But I was like sticking to it. I had this plan. And because this was the only plan I had, I wanted to stick with it. And it wasn't working. She didn't want to do it. So it was a very lonely experience. And I had a lactation consultant. I remember this come. She was 2 weeks old. Every time I would breastfeed her, she would scream. I found this lactation consultant for so much money. I was like, this is so crazy, but it was desperate. I was like, I have to have it. This
Right.
woman came and she was like, I don't think this is working for you. And it took the lactation consultant to be like, this doesn't look like fun. I was like, it's definitely not. I wouldn't say it's fun. And so like that was like the first thing of like, oh, it can look a little different than whatever expectation, whatever plan you had, it can be different. And that's okay.
See, you
I
just changed to
absolutely-
a bottle. You just
No, I mean, if you really want to get into my lactation, I had a lot of breast milk. And so that's why it was frustrating. I was like, I have a lot of milk. Why isn't she drinking the milk? But she didn't want to latch. So I
Right.
started pumping. And then I would going back to Fakakta, I would take my pump everywhere. I took it to California. I had to take the breast milk frozen. Like if I was working a job, I would have to call the hotel and I was like, can you clear out the mini bar? Because I'm going to need to use it to store breast milk.
breast
And
milk.
then I would get to like
Yes.
the air Delta, like on the plane. I was like, is there anywhere you could put this? And they were like, ma'am, absolutely not. So it was just,
Yes.
I felt like Bear Grylls in, I don't know what that TV show was when like they would like drop him off in like Antarctica and he would have to like get out of Antarctica or whatever it is. But I would travel with like a cooler that looked like somebody who was like going to like the Amazon, like the desert. And that was me with my breast milk traveling. You understand?
I do. She does.
Yes, yes.
So how long until you so you would pump and pump and pump? Do you think that is when you stopped breastfeeding with her to here, was that when the clouds kind
That's
of
like the
lifted?
beginning of it. I mean, the pumping is, I wouldn't say this is an easy commitment at
Right.
all. You're doing it like every 4 hours. And now pumps have come a long way. And there's like some like ones you can go wireless. I didn't have it like that. I had to be like plugged into like a socket. Yeah, exactly. And it was like you were on set. It was always embarrassing because we would like PD
It's
and be like,
horrible.
hi, I need a pump. But I was so lucky enough. I worked for during both those times. One was Amy Schumer and the other was a woman named Jamie Dembo. And they were both so incredible to be like, of course, go whatever you need. And they would take breaks around it. But you do feel like a pain in the ass, even though everyone's giving you all the allowance to be like, of course, of course, of course. I'm aware that daylight's sunset's coming, like production has to happen. So, it's having kids, even just like my daughter walking in right now. It's like everything, nothing's ever totally tied together like neatly with a bow. And I really learned to try, or I'm still learning to try to accept that. I'm a people pleaser. I want everyone to be happy. I want everything to be great. And like, that is really something that was another thing. Wow. Really, this is like a therapy session here. I think I felt a lot of pressure that for my baby Goldie at the time to smile and be kind to people and wave and say bye-bye and do like all the things that I thought that they were going to do. And she just wasn't that type of baby. She would stare at you. She was on to you. She was suspicious. And I felt this need to like apologize. I was like passing on my people pleasing shit to her. And I'd be like, she's not usually like this. Her nap was shorter, whatever it may be. That's really gone away, particularly second time parenthood with Alice. And I was like, I don't know. She's not into your dog. What can I tell you?
That's exactly why I asked you about the expectations, because with motherhood, everything gets turned upside down. Because if you live your life with the like, I'm doing this on time, I'm doing this on time, I'm doing this way, then a kid comes and you're like, oh, she's in control, not me. Wait,
that was me.
I get to change. Right? So that's a rephrasing, like I get to change, because most times people think I have to change, right? But it's like, no, I get to change. And that's when the second one gets all the benefits of
oh my God, totally. It was funny. Today I had rehearsal today and my wonderful caregiver was not available. So my husband was traveling with my other daughter. So like it was a wild day of nobody being around. And my brother-in-law and sister-in-law who don't have kids watched my daughter. And I was really stressed about it. I was like, I really felt like a balabusta, like a nona in the kitchen, like creating all different snacks so that any situation could happen and she would be prepared. Like we have sweet potatoes for that moment. I have snickerdoodle cookies here. I got strawberry. I had everything going on. And like, I think I left and like, she was fine. And all
Yeah.
this prepping and whatever. And she was, when I was here and their dog came, she was kind of being like, eh. And then I left and like, she was so into the dog. But sometimes it takes you like letting go, being like, she'll be fine. They'll be fine.
Mhm.
People have done
Mhm.
this with, with far less than
Millions.
we have
Yeah.
now. They'll be fine.
Talk to me. I want to know a little bit about Mrs. Maisel. You've started writing, right?
Yes, I'm done with my portion of it right now. They're
Okay.
still writing and they're shooting season 5 now.
Right. So what's that like to be in that room? I mean, they have 4 seasons already, and it's such that show just blew up.
Wait,
Yeah.
Eric, wait.
Yeah, go ahead.
She just said that like we're all supposed to know what the heck that means. What does it mean to say I'm done with my portion of it
Okay.
now?
Oh, yes.
Break that
Please.
down.
Break that down. So there's a few different ways to write a television show. Sometimes sometimes the show doesn't have a writer's room and it's just one kind of creator or 2 creators doing the entire thing together. More often than not, there is a facility or a staff of writers that put together a show. Even though it's a showrunner's vision and kind of crafting it all, there are staff writers who help with that. And for instance, for The Shrink Next Door, that was a brand new series and it was a mini series. It was it doesn't exist without just those episodes are the only thing that exists. So we got together and we did 20 weeks or so of writing the entire show, all the scripts, and then they went to film all the scripts. So like they were 2 separate processes. And often all of the writers are not on the set, particularly in COVID times as it's shooting. I happen to have been as an actor in Shrink Next Door. So I got to go on set. And it wasn't an episode I wrote. So it was like I was like just an actor, but because I know the show so well, there was other people kind of chiming in the questions and, you put your writer hat on as well. Maisel is a little bit of a different situation because I had not written the previous few seasons. So I had just come on for the 5th season, which is already a well-oiled machine. They know exactly the story they want to tell because it is their final season. They know how they want to kind of bring it home. So we're there to help see that vision off. So there's typically how it worked for us is we did 8 to 10 weeks of just in the room, just writers talking through each episode, what's going to happen, how it would happen. It would change. That has to change. That has to change. And then while we're writing it, they start filming it. So that was the first time I ever had that experience. So like they'll be writing, and then they'll stop to start filming. And then filming will stop for a week for the writers to pick up and start breaking another episode. So they're happening at the same time. Essentially.
Wow,
Okay,
that's
now Eric, go.
fascinating. Yeah.
If anyone's watching, this is Perrier and pomegranate juice. So I just want
that looks delicious.
With a splash of vodka.
I wish.
This is just Perrier. Okay, so
after this,
what's it like kind of coming into a room where the people have been working there for a long time and you are the new girl on the block?
Yeah. I mean,
What
I always this is imposter syndrome kicks in. Why am I here? It's a huge show. It's a hit. It's all of those things. But then I have to tell myself I'm here for a reason. I have something to say. And the best advice I can give to a writer is to, if you're ever staffing or like in your first staffing job is speak, say things, add to that conversation. That is why you're there. I think there's so much, most other jobs, it's kind of like a watch, learn, get the kind of the feel of it and then add on. But you sort of can't do that when you're in a writer's room. You have to kind of like get what the vibe is really quick and then start to yes and into the conversation. So it was definitely one of those experiences where we were off to the races, much more so than like trust exercises and like, let me tell you about, there's a lot less, getting to know you kind of vibe. Like you were right off into it.
That's so interesting that I love that you say, you get into the room and you say yes and.
Yes and,
which is exactly what improv is, right? So you are creating there and you're just saying yes and adding to the story and making sure that you are speaking up. But that must have been scary in a way, right?
It definitely is scary. And then you'll realize, it's so funny, like this personal stories you tell that are like, oh, this could be used. And what I think once you have your first like little win in that sort of way of like somebody saying like, that's a good idea, we could use that. And you're not even telling it in a way of you pitch typically in a room, meaning like
Right.
like what it feels like. You're in like a circle essentially, and you're like, what if this happened? But sometimes you're not even having those conversations, and you're having just personal conversations about what you should order for lunch and how, what happened last night when you watched the thing, and like the plumbing not working, and it brings up a story, and that story ends up being a weird thing that you can use. And it's always those things that like start to find their way into shows.
So we as women, we're slowly but surely and steadily making our way forward.
Mm.
Here you are in a writer's room where years ago it was all men in a writer's room. And
We'll
you
tap
start,
into Maisel this season because this speaks very much to what you're talking about.
Mhm.
But go on, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
You are the co-owner of a neon sign business. Typically, that's a male space,
Mhm.
and you advocate for female business owners.
Yeah.
So please tell me in these last few minutes, what if you have words of advice for women who want to be business owners, women who want to step into a space
Yeah.
where it's male dominated? What words of advice would you have for them?
I mean, the first thing I could say is to support female-owned businesses. I really try to do that research, particularly when I am purchasing something or looking for something. I want to support those smaller female businesses. I know as a small business ourselves, those things very much matter. Word of mouth very much matters. So those things have helped. It's how we built it. So if you're, even those things of like when you want to buy something quickly online, if like you can do one extra step of research and see if there's another way to do it, sometimes it's very helpful, and it means a lot to those businesses. And the other piece of advice is nobody really knows what they're doing up front. And so you kind of have to fall off the cliff. We are constantly being a business owner, being a small business owner at that is a thing of like, is this how it's supposed to go? That's kind of how we're always feeling, figuring out health insurance, figuring out, the PPE loans, figuring out all that sort of stuff was, but then you sort of realize like everyone's doing it everyone is at this part at some point, and that camaraderie is the thing you need. I'm very lucky that my business was founded with a partner. So we get to look at each other when we're like, what the heck are we doing? But it's again, imposter syndrome. You try to push through it if you can, because I don't know if it ever goes away. So get comfortable with that, because that might always sort of be there.
Yeah, I love that. So Sas, what's your hope as we, I mean, I could talk to you for hours, and I'm dying to know how you stalked your husband and for 8 months until he married you.
I
But
did
we'll talk
exactly
about
what it said. If his
yeah.
AIM profile said he was at the gym, I would be at the gym as well. If he was at the
Stop.
library,
How did you know he was at the gym?
Stop it.
AIM. It was, it's a little, I'm dating myself a little bit, but I was obsessed. He was like he was really not humored by me. And I found that to be very interesting.
Really?
Funny.
He didn't
Why?
think you were funny.
He was like, I don't think he thought one way or the other. He's like, okay. If you're in theater, University of Michigan has like a very big theater,
Yeah.
big musical theater department.
Yeah.
He had no idea that there was a theater or musical theater department in Michigan. So like that's sort of, it's kind of like that humbling experience with my kids where they're like, all right, it was that, but in the dating world. And I said in my vows, I was like, nobody ever thought we would get married but me.
You saw what you wanted and you went after it.
I did. It took a long time. It wasn't smooth sailing, but it was, maybe it was very much not smooth sailing, but now it's, 10 years of blissful wedded marriage. Is that the saying? Whatever that is.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
love that you put a punchline in your vows.
Oh, there was tons of punchlines.
I got married this July 31st.
Oh,
and
mazel tov.
I stalked him too. I mean,
Yeah, do a little stalking.
yeah, I saw what I wanted. I went after it, and
He's like, I'm
now
not interested. I was like, but you are.
28. Yeah, exactly. And then 28 years later, we're together. So I mean, it's just I saw that. I saw him, and I was like, I want that.
Yeah.
And I went after it, and I got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you hear? Okay. What's your hope for you work a lot off Broadway? I mean, obviously you made your Broadway debut, and
Yeah.
I saw you on Broadway, and I saw you off Broadway. It was the same show, it was just bigger. And what's your hope for the theater when we, hopefully a year from now, when we're all able to kind of sit together in the theater and the lights go down and we're either seeing you or you're watching something and whatever. What's your hope?
I hope that we give space and room for new voices to come to the theater, because I literally have learned so much just watching theater. So I hope
Yeah,
there's more opportunities to do that with stories we have not heard in any
yeah,
capacity. And then as audience viewers, go to the theater, wear
yeah.
your mask, wash your hands, buy a ticket if you can. If not, there's really, most particularly off-Broadway theaters have reasonably priced seats at any
Yep.
of the space. It just takes like a little bit of effort to do.
Tiny bit.
But come, I know for Which Way to the Stage, I just was told that the mezzanine and the front row are all $30 tickets. And so, come and come to the space if you can. And if you can't, write me and let's see what we can do.
Yeah,
Oh,
I will be
yes.
there. I can't wait to be there. I'm sitting in the front row.
Come see theater afterwards.
Yeah. I mean, I can't wait to see it. I think nothing but to me, you're surrounded by this incredible light.
Oh,
You're funny. You have a heart of gold. I know we've not actually met, but we have this little relationship on Instagram
kismet.
where we direct message each other, and I just I just think you're one of the million,
Oh God,
and
thank you so much.
I think your writing and your acting and everything about you, your motherhood, your business, everything. I adore you.
Well, I
And
can't wait to disappoint you when we meet in person.
shut up. We already have that connection. We got the Jew connection. So
We do.
we'll
Next year in
pour.
Israel.
Yeah, exactly. Next year in Israel. I thank you so much from the bottom of my heart
Thank you. Thank you so
for
much for chatting with me in my bedroom. I really, really
oh, I
appreciate
loved
it.
it. Where's Goldie? Let's get her.
Hopefully sleeping. It's 8 o'clock at night. I'll be
Okay.
so upset if her goddamn face is outside there right now when I go.
Okay. God bless you, Joy. Thank you
Good
so
night.
much for
Thank you
joining
so
me
much.
tonight.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Sass.
Thank you,
We'll see you at the
Sas.
theater. Don't
Mwah.
wait. Don't
See you at
forget
the theater.
Which Way to the Stage at MCC Theater. Don't also forget the Shrink Next Door and Amy
Life and
Schumer's
Beth.
Hulu
Life and Beth.
series Life and Beth. And the 5th season of The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. This lady right here is writing. So thank you all so much.
Good
And
night,
thank you,
everyone.
Sass. Let me see. That's our show. On Monday, March 28th, Joy and I will interview the amazing Elizabeth Marvel. Elizabeth portrayed Mark Antony in the Public Theater's production of Julius Caesar in the Park. She has won 4 Obie Awards in her off-Broadway work, most notably for the title role in Ivan Van Hove's 2004 production of Hedda Gabler. That was amazing. She also received a Drama Desk nomination for her performances in 50 words. The following Monday, April 4th, Joy and I will interview Kelly Gazzaro. Kelly is also an Obie winner as the founder of the Fire This Time Festival. She was recently named director of the New Works at the legendary Apollo Theater in Harlem. Information about all of our upcoming guests, as well as how to attend one of our online recordings like tonight, can be found on our website, liveathelortel.com. Thank you for joining us. Theater is open, so go book your tickets now and see a show. Wear a freaking mask. Get a vaccination. You won't believe how wonderful it is to be back in the theater, to go to the theater to see an artist like this woman right here. Stay safe, stay healthy, have a wonderful night, and we'll see you next week. Thank you, everybody. Especially thank you, Sass. Thank you, Joy. Good night.